Thank you for coming on into the live and sharing your essence with me in this eternal moment of which we all share an inextricable and inexorable part. Thank you for doing your part, for coming on in each and every day, and we'll do the same without wasting a single second of your time. Bada bing, bada boom. We go into the charts. Cat, you're incorrigible. All right. So Bitcoin got that push up to 43K, knocking out that 250 million, and then now starting to pull back a little bit to the 706 of this diagonal pitch fan we've had price in for quite some time now. So rejecting off of this point of control, do we come back down to another point of control over here? This one being at 42.6-ish. We already went down to that region by the looks of it and wicked off of the 706 there. Let's go take a look at the liquidity. What is the liquidity? Well, people lock their liquidity into the charts to get burnt to a crisp by the market maker for not using a stop loss, and we get to see where those crispy characters are, so let's do it now. So in the last 24 hours we had about 17 million in longs and 20 million in shorts for BTC getting squeezed, 37 million in total.
Fatality.
So let's go ahead and take a look at what that is like for the last 12 hours. So if we go into the heat map here, you can see that they were getting some longs, 111 million stacked up alongside some others, and then they dumped it down to here and grabbed all the liquidity down there. There's still some liquidity up above, and if we go to the 6 month, which we were looking at before, there was this large amount up in that 44. There's 2 billion at 45K, and then at 44.4 you have 1.72 trillion. So do we come back into that region getting the 44.4 at or not? If you look to what we were saying yesterday, we were saying a pullback to the 6.5 or the 706 would be likely. If you take just in sequential order what we were talking about, we were saying it would come up and reject off of here before it got here, mind you, because we were back here when we were streaming. We were saying it would come up to that point turn and then come down to here, the 6.5 and 42.830, and then possibly come up from there. So if you look at this just purely on a sequential order, it did that, and then now it's coming to there, and so we could come up to here and basically go on the journey some more. All right, so we still have this idea in play, coming to the 44.4 region after the liquidity grab of the wick whacking up here. We were saying you wouldn't want to long up in this region. They're going to play some games, manipulate it, come down to here. And if you're down in the weekend area where we were talking about it at the 236, you're smooth sailing into profit. You can just observe from a safe distance. Today though, we have the FOMC, so who knows what will be happening with that. So if we look at Dixie is kind of still in this channel and keeps wicking the upside without sweeping this area down here. These are kind of ripe for the picking down here. So coming back to this wick area and liquidity grabbing the sell side here, possibly all the way down to here before coming up to these levels. We have been seeing this slant to the upside here, so coming down into this liquidity of the longs here, the sell side, that would be the thing to do. We only had that one wick, so coming down and taking out this would be the reasonable thing to think, although it is still undefined as to which direction it prefers for Dixie. So just to reiterate, news inbound today. You have the bunch of red folders, non-farm payroll, or non-farm employment change, sorry. And then later you have the FOMC statement. Okay, so watch out for that in the later half of the session. Okay, and let's go back to BTC real quick. If we go back to this, we came back and reclaimed that gap. There is still that gap up in this region that we can reclaim. So if we come down, let's go ahead and see this. Point of control did change. It's different on this one. So we could be coming back down to that perhaps before we go there. This is at the level of 42.5-ish. 42.540 for perhaps. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead, and I wouldn't change a thing about the math. The math is doing its thing, so we'll just keep that as is and throw on our momentum and see where it's at. Link in the description for more. MomentumMaster.info. Scroll down to features, toggle at your leisure from Bitcoin's bottom in 2022 November, before we ran up. We traced price action because we were getting the rocket ships there. We didn't know it was the bottom at 15.5-ish. The trend cloud, the baselines, the dynamic alerts to your phone, and more. And let's go throw it on now. Let's go ahead and throw that. Okay. So the 3-day we were looking at was something was going to close, and the 3-day closed with a bit of a fat-bodied doji. It's kind of got rejection wicks on both, and it's kind of in the range, in the midpoint. We did reclaim this thin boy baseline of this cross down event from December, so we could be on our way to come up to here and beyond. Who knows? We are getting these stop hunt triangles, these manipulation candles, so this could be your bearish retest to come lower. We bounced off of the adaptive and the cloud on the 3-day, as you would expect to find some support there. The Williams starting to turn a little bit, and the stochastic starting to come up with the money flow beneath the RSI, suggestive of a potential 3-day money flow insertion at this 706 level. They call this the trapdoor because, or I call this the trapdoor because it's where you get permission granted to go to the upside or not. It is the key point where it gets permission granted or denied. And if denied, it goes hard. If it's granted, it goes hard. So it is a key point in the projection to see it through. Okay, so we're back at the daily cloud resistance level. We wicked into it and came back down. We were talking about that cloud yesterday too, which is one reason why we were seeing it come to the downside. We also looked at that liquidity of the 100xers, saying it would likely sweep those up. Money flow in our side, even Steven levels. Williams starting to push the potential of this stochastic as a double top scenario. Money flow, the baselines open in a momentous way to continue to the upside on the daily time frame. If you go to the 22-hour cloud is curved in a manner here similar to that 12-hour, most likely. If we look at the 12-hour and juxtapose it, they're the same. 12-hour starting to shift as well. Looking at the 22-hour, we said this money flow beneath the RSI is something to look at. That disparity tends to gravitate the money flow up to the RSI, and what do you know? It did. So this is what happens. We see this in advance and predict it just based off of previous times it did so. And conversely, now you're getting the money flow above the RSI, so you're starting to get some fatigue. So even if you come up to these regions, does that mean you get a rejection as the fatigue starts to build here on that money flow on the 22? It still could be building, so you still could continue higher. All depends on the red folder news today. Coming to the 12-hour time frame, previously had money flow above the RSI. That was why we were talking about it coming up and then coming down, and it did so. Now the money flow is back at even Steven levels, so you could get a push again on the 12-hour. Stochastic is pinned to the ceiling, but the MACD and the Williams still showing signs of life on the 12-hour time frame. One thing to note is we fell beneath the baseline. The baseline is your first sign of reversal, so falling beneath that and closing candles beneath that could mean a cross down event to cascade lower. We're also at this cloud idea, so coming back and kissing this cloud after breaking out, you tend to break out of the cloud and then you come back and you kiss it, and then that's your continuation confirmation at the cloud. We can delete these. We'll delete these as we get to that time frame, but that's the 6 and the 4. As you come to the 6-hour time frame, you'll see that this cloud was shifting in advance. We were insinuating that move higher because of the thinning of the cloud coming up here. Cloud starting to taper ever so slightly. So does this continue on its path in this manner and get that 12-hour shift as well? If you look at the 6-hour cross down event, you had a flash of the baseline cross here at that 43.6 we were talking about, and then starting to come down. Do you come down to this 236 once again? We did have that confirmation play off of that. Do we come down to this super trend or the cloud or the inflection point of the 12-hour or not? That is the question. Getting the Williams potential to cross down here, so watch out for the Williams suppression of the 6-hour here. So we could be seeing some possible suppression and this from takeoff, and seeing this come down immediately in a ABC fashion. So watch out for that 6-hour suppression and that cascade of the 12-hour to the downside with the Williams. Coming to the 4-hour. 4-hour reached a max point at the 4-hour time frame keystone sequence, and then it's starting to come back down here. You had a Williams play starting to come down, possibly suppressing this. If you get the trapdoor of the 706 opened here, then we could be flushing all the way back down to the bottom here. This is Wednesday, January 31st. The monthly candle closes today as well. We'll go ahead and look at the monthly candle in a minute. The stochastic coming down. MACD also crossed down, leading MACD. Do we come back down to the 0 level and confirm this as a flip in the stochastic domain to the upside? Coming to the super trend on the 4-hour would put you the confluence region at the 236 as well, alongside the adaptive and the cloud. So are we coming back to kiss the cloud on the 4-hour? This 4-hour cloud moving quite nicely in a manner here to the upside. Does it continue as usual? So that is the 4-hour time frame. 4-hour coming down. Stochastic is coming down alongside the 6-hour, and within the last hour you also broke this hourly cloud. So as of this moment in time, you're making these stop hunt triangles, so they're stopping out all of the longs here. Basically, whoa, almost spilled my coffee. Whew, nice save. All right, so if we're got a waterproof keyboard for that reason, if it spills on my keyboard, it doesn't destroy it. All right, so looking at where we're at right here. Sorry, let me clean this up a little bit. So we came back to the 42. Let's turn this to the weekly. So you have down to 42,397. If you want to cascade all the way down to 41.5, you could. There is more liquidity on the weekly this way. Down to 41.5 would have 376 million. 41.5. 41.5 will have you down here at this wick. Do you recover that wick from Monday? That is a possibility as we potentially cascade to the downside. The 706 trap door possibly opening up. We are breaking down here on the cloud on the hourly, and you had that cross down event of the 4 and the 6 hour time frame. Let's go lower to the 15 to look for anything important. Getting the Williams flush with the MACD here, suppressing the takeoff of the 15-minute. And yeah, Asia is good at dumping it. So does Asia take it to the downside here? You had your 3 hits to the high. We were talking about this over and over again, how you get 3 hits to the high, and then on the 3rd hit here you had broken the super trend. So the super trend on the other side as confirmation with the 6 time frames overbought was your key signal at 4 a.m. my time, and you start to make your way to the downside with the cross down of the baseline and just cascaded your way on through. So we could have like some 4 potentially some big candle continuation to sweep up some of the liquidity down here. If we go to a weekly time frame, let's go see. 41.5 has you 200 million down at 41.3, 41.6, 200 million. So you got about $500 million down in this range at the 41.5-ish region on the weekly time frame. Coming to the monthly, yeah, 377 million at 41.6. Okay, let's go ahead and turn on the lower time frame liquidity here at ML applications. Liquidation levels V2 set to 0.1 threshold. We got doubled up music today, so we just did no sound. So hopefully you can just deal with silence. All right, so let's go see what's up. Ah, I see. Cool. Nice. Okay, so it looks like you got a little bit of 100xers interested in shorting right now, so they could come up and squeeze a little bit to that point and create a fake double bottom event like this, and then basically rip it to the downside thereafter. Or it could just fade right here. Sometimes they just leave the station and say screw it if they have a juicier target they have in mind to eliminate. The 50Xers, there's a $2.79 million trader here that is at break even right now. They could come down to that guy, knock his 100X guy out, come up to the shorts, and then come on lower. But this is why we were seeing this potential of coming down, all those 100Xers that from when we were analyzing it last time, coming down and sweeping those guys up. Okay, so it's one way to throw that on and check it out. Let's go ahead and look at a volume analysis for BTC right here. So you have a VWAP down at 42.2 and 42.5. And you have a low at 41.7. If we go ahead and turn this, let's do to the 30-minute time frame. Okay, so let's go ahead and look deeper into the people eliminated here. So they hit about 500 Bitcoin, eliminated 500 sell stops there at 42.8 about an hour ago. So they eliminated a long position player, most likely. So they trapped some longs up in here. You can see yesterday they had about, what is that, like a 200 long player that pushed the price up on that third burst, and they had some buy stops hit for the shorts up here, about 250 Bitcoin, and they bought some up here, and then they started to test the sell stops and then hit the 500 there. So a liquidity grab was taken, an elimination there. If we juxtapose this to the liquidation here in the last hour, there was a long player in the last, a 460K long eliminated in the last hour. It was likely that guy. There's a 9.6 million in the last 4 hours in this drop here. So after eliminating that guy, that 560 Bitcoin player that was eliminated at 42.8, they're starting to absorb that idea and come back to those 100Xers that we were talking about. Okay, so it looks like we could be setting up for a short continuation idea, B-wave idea to the downside here, at least in the interim, to that sweep of the 41.6 region / recovery of the wick from Monday. So maybe they are flushing all of the longs from Monday and possibly the weekend players at the 706 trap door. So watch for this trap door at 42.953 to be opened to the downside. If not, you have your target from unchanged from yesterday at the 44.4 region. Let's go ahead and go to Bitcoin dominance and see how Bitcoin wants to dominate the space, crypto space. NQ had a little bit of a dump with Microsoft news. I'm not sure what the news was. Probably they spent a lot more than they were expecting on ChatGPT and Sam Altman, and they have yet to realize profits on their AI assistant stuff. I follow the AI stuff quite well, so I know that they're not yet having the innovation side of things I got the money flow above the RSI here on the 5-minute. Even though you come up here, you could be gassed on the money flow. This disparity on the money flow suggestive of this money flow coming down to the RSI. If you have any questions or comments or anything you want answered, please let me know in advance. Coming to total 3. So we had, let's go ahead and zoom out here. So we did recover that gap we were talking about. We came up to the gap and rejected off of it. We were talking from back here on Saturday, the last time we looked at total 3, coming up to that gap, and it did. What is going to happen here at the, we recovered at that 706 for the bullish trend-based fib, got that permission granted to the upside and boomed up from there. All right, and we are reclaiming the 12-hour time frame here on total 3. We skipped the Bitcoin dominance for whatever reason, and getting this flash of the cross down event for Bitcoin dominance on the 12-hour. This means that we could be seeing this come down to that 12-hour region, giving the alts a little bit of time to play ball. If the USDT dominance is coming lower, that means that money is going into trades, while the dominance dropping also means alts get a little bit of a burst. So that was why we were seeing the alts burst up to that gap. Okay, so are we getting a continuation idea off of this cloud on the 12-hour to see this come up further to the top of the range here? Okay, that is what it looks like for the total 3. So this means that you can look at crypto bubbles and see what's kind of trending in the last day, the week, and you can check out something that's hot, like whatever this is, Manta, ARB, and then take a look at who's been liquidated and where. They'll tell you in the last hour, Sol, ETH, ORDI, XRPC, a lot of, we were looking at TDO. I remember looking at somebody's JDO, was it? Or was it, I don't even remember. Somebody asked about something. I don't remember, but a few days ago somebody asked about some altcoin. So yeah, could be seeing some continuation for the altcoins. I would look for some that's already red, or if you're looking for a short right now, then you'd see one that's green and then try to find that position for it to come lower. Bitcoin looks like it potentially dropping to that 12-hour cloud region or the 236 one more time. Got a bunch of ugliness for this week, a lot of red folders, so you got to be careful trading this week. FOMC generally wick-whacks both sides. You can go back and back test that, but FOMC wouldn't be surprising to see something like this. You know, like what in the world, where it just sweeps both sides and then goes. I've seen that happen in a matter of minutes. So you could see something like boom, 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 and it just does whatever it wants on FOMC. So you got to be very careful for that FOMC stuff. Size down and act accordingly. All right, let's go ahead and see SPY. Okay. All right, SPY. What was it? It was JTO. That's what it was. JTO. Interesting. So we were talking about it coming down to that level at the 618 and bouncing up for like, wait a minute, what were we saying? So it was back here on Sunday, and we were talking about coming to the 618 and bouncing out for potentially 25%. We didn't get the 25, but we got all the way up to the 786 for 11%. But actually, if you got in at the 618, that was the 17%, and bounced off, rejected off of that 12-hour cloud. Interesting. Just interesting to see how the TI plays out even on these new projects with very little data. And that's how you do it. Interesting. So let's go look at SPX for SPX. So we're going to go ahead and remove everything and just kind of look at it fresh, getting some keystone sequence and some nukes here on the 12-hour time frame, suggestive of coming lower, but you are reaching into some highs. Is it all-time highs? I'm not sure about that. Let's go back in time, turn everything off, and start fresh. So it looks like you are at all-time highs. So you're kind of at all-time highs. SPX kind of stealing the show from NASDAQ because of Microsoft and the earnings reports for different companies being not up to par last quarter, perhaps. But the S&P doing its thing. You have some extremely bullish. You gapped up here and you didn't even recover that gap. So this gap down here didn't even get recovered at all. So that's pretty interesting. You had some bullishness back from Friday, Friday the 19th, and we just took off and never looked back. If we look at some profiles here, we're going to go into a smaller time frame and analyze the volume here. My leg's falling asleep here. Okay, so this is for today. Let's go ahead and do it in the 15-minute. Hi. What do you want, cat? Don't bite me like you did before, and we are cool. Why does it not have the volume turned on? Hold up. Stop, please. Don't scratch my clothes. So, the point of control was actually down here for time, but then the volume was mostly down here for the day. Here, the volume was mostly up there. Basically looking at where the volume is, so there's some large node down there at 4891. There's some large volume here at 4894. Yesterday you had a peak of volume up in here. Okay. Stop, please. And over here, 4840. All right. Coming into the analysis here. Where can we go? So we have a lot of thin print here. This is where a lot of whatchamacallit, whoops, it spent very little time in this region, so coming back into this region to at least test what's going on seems to be the reasonable thing to think about. So if we come up to this region and reject and come down to here, at the bare minimum, coming back for a retrace down into these regions, seems like it would be reasonable to think, as we have experienced all-time highs coming down into this region. This was after the last run-up in the last hour of trading. So they could be doing a rotation similar to what NQ did yesterday for Asia session. So the Asia session yesterday did this run up, ran this. I would look at what NQ did yesterday and then see that same pattern possibly playing out for the S&P. Okay. It's already doing that for the ES. Interesting. So I was looking at the regular S&P. So it's already starting to reject off the point of control and come on down during the, so you could be seeing like a repeat and come down to the point of control, come down to this. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the no, let's keep it where it was actually, because that was a 5-minute more precise candle. All right, cat, don't dig your nails in and we're cool. Stop biting me. You don't get to bite me and sit on my lap. That's not how it works. Okay, so I think that is good enough. So I'm gonna go and throw on the momentum now. All right, so we came back into a level here, recovered the candle. We were looking at that same idea of coming down into this. I didn't even look at the ES before that moment, but yeah, I was seeing coming down to here and possibly coming down into these, retracing into these levels similar to the NQ. So we could be doing something like this today for ES. It's kind of like a SMT divergence for the NQ, like they put in a higher high while NQ just tanked prematurely because of Microsoft earnings. So we're back beneath the cloud on the hourly here on the ES, broke the super trend and possibly coming to a level here. We have a bunch of, we reached a keystone level on the 15, so retracing back up similar to Bitcoin. Like we came down here, come up, and then continue lower. We are getting a cross-up event of the baselines on the 15. If you go to the 5-minute, we're starting to play around with the idea of squeezing some of the shorts that got paid on the initial dip from the last hour of the day leading into the open. So we opened down here, and so coming back up to close some of those shorts. Some confluence with the manipulation areas here. So possibly coming to this region, 49.47, and then rejecting off of that. Could be doing very similar things to the Bitcoin idea. And yeah, that seems like it could be a thing to think about. You're in the Asian session. Let's go ahead and try something here. But it's actually, if we do the trend-based fibs, then coming to the 236 came on through and then breaking down. Yeah, but that's not my standard idea. So what you would want to do is, for a continuation idea for ES, would be, you got the impulse here. So wherever it goes, let's just say it goes up to the B, right? Then you'd be looking for that confirmation short idea from that 49.39 region, and then possibly coming to these regions at 49.16 and so on and so forth. You got some resistance level, some support structure perhaps at 49.23. You know, whatever it ultimately turns at, you would look for that as a reversal point. Okay. And that is how I would be looking at the ES right now. We rejected off the point of control for yesterday and then came down, currently making some point of control here, building the narrative for today. So I'd watch to see how London, does London manipulate it up and then arrange to come down for New York or not. I would bet that it's coming lower, but that's just me. Hopefully that made sense. All right, cool. ETH BTC, cool. ETH BTC, looking at ETH BTC. ETH BTC taking off here. People quietly positioning in. We talked about the rocket ship that took off back there, gave back a majority of it. How much did it give back exactly? About 618 level on the daily time frame, coming back into this candle. If you just measure this candle itself and then you do equilibrium, the 50% level, we came back to that 50% of this candle and bounced off of that. So it could be that it's just recovering some of the liquidity and recouping the entry idea. You still have the cross down event of the daily baseline here. If we start coming to lower time frames, the 4-hour starting to bounce off that 50% recovery of that vector on the daily. And there's this key level which they started their stop hunt on here. And coming to the 4 after the hourly. So it is kind of the first hit on that 50%. You could realistically manipulate down into one of these levels and come up from there. I'm not one to always just get in on one little tap to the 618 only, but coming to the 15. So it basically stayed in there all yesterday at that 0.5% level and then started to burst out. All right, so the ETH BTC possibly coming down into a pocket region here. So you'd be looking to see if this holds or not. You could have, it depends on what type of analysis you're looking for, but if you have this as a deep retrace idea, it could come all the way down to the 786 and then go. So it kind of manipulated up here during that phase. If we look at ETH by itself, ETH came down, that's why. So it came down alongside Bitcoin but maintained that push from London. When is the ETF slated to be approved or whatever for ETH? Because I think that's what is... its approval in May. ETH could hit 4,000 with likely spot ETH ETF approval in May. So that is probably what is causing this to remain more of a viable option going into that. But it's very similar to Bitcoin in that it's the buy the rumor, sell the news type of thing. So even if it gets approved, that could lead to a sell-off. The structure on the 6 hours, not the most beautiful. We got that 618 bounce here. I'm gonna delete this now because it's irrelevant, but yeah, the structure is kind of creating a rounded top. It could come down and sweep all of the liquidity here for Ethereum. So coming down and recovering this wick at the minimum and then going up from there. Looks more like ABC style to me than anything else. If I take the Fibonacci trend-based fib extension tool and go like this, you have your idea for coming down to that at least on the 6 hour to potentially sweep some of these longs. I mean, it depends. It's still January. You got the end of the month, the monthly candle closing, so a lot of stuff to maintain a level and then possibly drop it as the FOMC play comes in. And that's about it. That's basically what I'm trying to look at here. Wait, what? Was that a different one? I think I'm looking at it. Yeah, I was looking at Ethereum Classic. So potentially coming down, but if they both go down and ETH maintains while Bitcoin drops too, then this will maintain the value, I guess, so it will continue higher in that regard. But overall, that is what we're looking at. I'm not really sure how, like, I can't juxtapose how BTC, Ethereum, and the ETH pair correlate just yet, if I'm being honest. So I don't understand what causes it to go up when both are going down, if that makes any sense. So I'm not, it's kind of out of my league a little bit. Sorry about that if I don't understand it as much. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what's getting liquidated now. Who is getting liquidated? Did that $2.6 million character get liquidated? We were talking about this $2.6 million guy. Where did he go? Did he close it? I think he did. There was a guy that was open here that was like 2.6 million, which is why we were talking about this coming lower to eliminate that guy. 2.7, there we go. So do they come to that guy? Down to here? Was that enough on the 100x side of things? Maybe they'll get him later. Testing his fervor to keep it open in a negative position and then give him a little bit and then continue to destroy. All right, well, that is my story and I'm sticking to it for BTC. I don't see any change in the analysis. You do have this cloud coming in a thick purple manner, not signs of abating just yet. So I'm not really looking to long this area. This is a bit of an intense sell-off, so you could see a continuation to the downside leading into the FOMC and going into that 41.6 region. Watch out for the 236 breaking and not holding, in which case the bullish narrative is over. The last time we talked about the 236 holding and looking for a potential bounce was here on Monday, and we got it. 3 hits to the high and downside. So looking for this to be recovered. Wick recovered down at 41.6, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So thank you for your time, and thank you for coming on into the live and sharing your essence with me in this eternal moment of which we all share an inextricable and inexorable part. Thank you for doing your part, for coming on in each and every day.